My fellow Antiguans and Barbudans, on the 1st of August 1834, the enslaved people of Antigua and Barbuda joined their brothers and sisters throughout the British Caribbean in celebrating the legal abolition of one of the most barbaric institutions ever conceived by mankind. It marked the end of more than 2 centuries of chattel slavery, a system that extracted immeasurable wealth from the labor of enslaved Africans while condemning generations to unspeakable suffering, deprivation, and indignity. Slavery was not merely an economic enterprise. It was a calculated assault upon human civilization itself. Millions of African men, women, children were violently uprooted, torn from their ancestral lands, stripped of their identities, separated from their families, denied their humanity, and reduced in law to the status of chattel property. Our forebears, free labor, built plantations, ports, and other infrastructure, banks, industries, universities, and empires, while their own descendants inherited poverty rather than prosperity. The United Nations has recognized slavery and the transatlantic trafficking of enslaved Africans as among the gravest atrocities ever committed against humanity. It was a crime against human dignity whose consequences continue to reverberate across generations and continents. Colonialism, which succeeded and sustained slavery, further institutionalized inequality, extracting the wealth of colonized peoples while denying them political rights, economic opportunity, and the freedom to determine their own destinies. Yet, despite centuries of oppression, our ancestors refused to surrender their humanity. They refused to surrender their dignity. Their resilience remains one of the most inspiring chapters in our national history, and certainly in all of human history. Our forefathers preserved their faith, their courage, their culture, and their hope. They transformed suffering into strength, adversity into determination, and oppression into an unrelenting struggle for freedom, for justice, and human dignity. Although emancipation ended the legal institution of slavery, it did not end exploitation. Forced labor was replaced by poorly remunerated wage labor that enriched plantation owners even further. Those who controlled the means of production also controlled the machinery of government, ensuring that laws served privilege rather than justice. The Labor and Contract Act of 1865 and the Masters and Servants Act of 1922 entrenched economic exploitation. On the other hand, the Elections and Constitution Ordinance of 1936 denied the overwhelming majority of Antiguans and Barbudans participation in governance through discriminatory literacy and income qualifications. As the late Sir Norval Richards aptly observed, Antigua remained a society of barefoot and illiterate people. They were deliberately marginalized by a colonial system designed to preserve power in the hands of a privileged white minority. The tide began to turn with the founding of the Antigua Trades and Labor Union in January of 1939 and the enactment of the Trade Union Act later that year. Workers were finally empowered to organize, to negotiate collectively, and demand fair wages and humane working conditions. Fearless leadership, inspired by an unwavering belief in justice, fundamentally altered the course of our history. The observance of Labor Day in 1951, though lacking official sanction, became another defining moment in the transfer of power from entrenched economic interests to the working people of our nation. The struggle for workers' rights evolved into the struggle for universal suffrage, constitutional reform, self-government, associated statehood in 1967, and ultimately independence on the first day of November 1981. History compels us to acknowledge an uncomfortable truth. The legacy of slavery and colonialism did not end with emancipation or political independence. Many of the nations whose wealth was created through the free labor of enslaved Africans entered the modern age with enormous accumulated capital. Many of the nations whose wealth was extracted entered independence burdened by structural disadvantage. The resulting disparities remain evident in patterns of global wealth, access to finance, technological advancement, and economic opportunity. Black-led nations, particularly small developing states, continue to confront systemic discriminatory barriers within the international economic order. Too often, asymmetries of political and economic power are deployed to constrain sovereign policy choices, to restrict innovation and limit development pathways. These practices risk becoming modern instruments of economic recolonization, perpetuating dependency in place of genuine partnership and shared prosperity. Against this background, the call for reparatory justice grows even more compelling. Reparations are neither an appeal for charity nor an exercise in assigning inherited blame. They are grounded in principles of justice, equity, and historical accountability. Reparations should also be seen as a deterrent to future atrocities. Repair requires acknowledging the enduring consequences of slavery and colonialism and undertaking meaningful measures to address the structural inequalities that they produced. Such measures may include investment in education, healthcare, technology, climate resilience, institutional development, debt reform, and equitable access to international finance and markets. Repair is not about revisiting the past. It is about creating a more just and equitable future. It's about enlightenment. It's about respecting and preserving our common humanity. As we commemorate 192 years of emancipation, we must also renew our commitment to building societies where freedom is measured not only by political rights, but by economic opportunity, social justice, and human dignity. Our vision must extend beyond our own shores. The challenges confronting humanity, to include poverty, inequality, climate change, conflict, and displacement, cannot be solved by division or domination. They require cooperation founded upon mutual respect and our shared humanity. Modern science reminds us that every human being belongs to one human family. The evidence contained within our shared mitochondrial DNA points to our common ancestry and affirms a truth long expressed by moral and spiritual traditions. Despite our differences of race, nationality, language, or religion, we are fundamentally one people. If we truly accept that we are one human family, then we must also accept that the suffering of one diminishes us all, and that the prosperity of one should never depend on the impoverishment of another. The future must belong to a fairer, more equitable, and peaceful global civilization. A civilization founded not upon domination and punitive actions, but genuine cooperation and partnership. Not upon exploitation, but shared prosperity. Not upon might, but right. Not on exclusion, but inclusion. Not upon power alone, but upon justice, peace, love, and mutual respect for our common humanity. Here in Antigua and Barbuda, we remain steadfast in our determination to build a resilient, innovative, and prosperous nation. A lifestyle superpower that honors the sacrifices of those who came before us and on whose shoulders we stand. This is a vision from which we shall not relent, despite the myriad challenges to include the punitive and exploitative actions of the powerful. Let's continue to build our lifestyle superpower with resilience, strength, courage, and optimism, knowing that justice, truth, and love will prevail. We'll continue to defend our sovereignty, expand economic opportunity, strengthen our democracy, and advocate for a world in which every nation, regardless of size, enjoys equal dignity, equal opportunity, and shared prosperity. My countrymen and countrywomen, the unfinished work of emancipation is not simply to remember the abolition of slavery. It is to ensure that justice triumphs over inequality and that opportunity replaces exclusion. That every human being is afforded the dignity with which our Creator endowed us. As I conclude, I say to you that yes, there are a myriad of challenges standing in the way of our progress. But do not fear, do not despair. Soldier on in optimism for a brighter future. Do not worry, my dear people, do not fear. We are covered by God's almighty hand. The challenges that are meant to break us will certainly make us stronger. Be encouraged by the triumph of our forebears who struggled for hundreds of years, but were courageous and never succumbed to wrong. Stand firm against the evil, discriminatory, and bullying practices of the powerful. Let's fight on as a fearless nation with fearless soldiers and continue to lead the transformation of our country into a lifestyle superpower. Again, do not fear. Gaston told you. May God Almighty continue to bless Antigua and Barbuda. May He guide us in the pursuit of justice, peace, love, and resilient prosperity. And may He inspire all humanity to build a civilization worthy of our common origin and certainly our shared destiny. Happy Emancipation Day. I thank you.